Yo,
Hi.
what's up?
Um, Nothing much. Just gave the students a standardized test, ended that, and now I'm ready to rumble.
So you're actually a math teacher.
I am actually a math teacher, yes.
Nice. All right,
Yeah.
set the record straight. Hit me up. What's up?
All right. All right. So, well, the thing that kind of surprises me about you is that I've been watching your content for a bit, and you seem like a pretty pragmatic utilitarian guy. You want people to prosper and live happy lives and all that good stuff. And so it kind of surprised me that you're a socialist, you know?
Yeah, that seemed like the easiest way to get from point A to point B.
Right. Well, um, and yeah, I can, that kind of stuff actually used to appeal to me back in, uh, feels weird to say back in my youth. Like, I'm not actually that old, but I guess my like my question is, it used to be that um, I was turned off of socialism by reading, the standard stuff about how Mao killed millions of people and whatever, and that turned me off to it for a while. And then I learned about oh, there's a libertarian form of socialism, right, where you have worker co-ops and stuff like that. But there's still I still feel like the economic problems with that prevent it from being a usable system.
Wait, hold on.
Like,
My partner said you were blowing up their DMs. You came in here saying you were ready to set the record straight. I'm going to need a significantly more antagonistic opener
all right,
from you. Then
all right.
I have some concerns about the economic viability of socialism.
All right, fine. Let me tell you about this then. So Yugoslavia, adopted market socialism back in the 60s. Number 2 on the list of greatest hyperinflations in history. Okay, we're talking okay, I want you to picture the amount of money in your bank account, then move the decimal point 12 places to the left, and then try to buy something. That's the kind of inflation that we're talking about.
Why did that happen?
Well, okay, so yes, that's the question, right? It's is there a causal relationship? But the World Bank did a postmortem on this, and yes, I know that there's the World Bank has its biases, whatever. But just factually speaking, though, I'll tell you their analysis, and then you can maybe see if you want to pick it apart. But what they found was the way the economy was structured was actually causing this inflation because when you have a firm that's completely managed by the employees, they're going to want to bring their most of the profits are going to go to wages and salaries rather than to investment in the firm's actual activities.
So the period of hyperinflation in Yugoslavia began in 1992 after the collapse of the Soviet Union and after the period of Yugoslavian market socialism that I'm being criticized for being associated with.
Well, did it though?
Yes.
I'm not sure about that. It did kick into gear because of the the political instability, but those trends were being set long. I mean, this World Bank report is from 1989,
It
pre all
seems
that,
it seems like if
and
anything, market reforms were what led to the hyperinflation. That it was actually during the period of worker cooperatives that Yugoslavia's economy was at its most stable, and then after the death of Tito, the fall of the Soviet Union, and the destabilization of that region of the world, the economy got less and less stable.
like, I mean, it's not that hard to understand this logic, though. Like, okay, imagine you're on the Yugoslav version of The Office, right? And Comrade Michael Scott is like having a meeting about like we just posted some new profits. Like, what are we going to do with this money? Are we going to put it into like machines to make paper faster, or
So wait,
are we going to
I'm
get paid?
I'm happy to
Right?
engage with this, but you realize that what you've moved from is empirical critique of a real economic system to an abstract criticism of an economic system. Because this period of hyperinflation didn't occur during the time that it would have needed to indict Yugoslavia's market socialism. We
Um.
have data on worker cooperatives, you know. They're quite efficient. It turns out
Well.
that workers are actually perfectly capable of balancing their own wages with the needs to expand their industry, even if they elect their own managers.
Yeah. What country were those studies done in?
I don't have them on hand, but there are quite a few of them from Europe and from Latin
Because
America.
okay, because okay, so from Europe, right? So that like because my
And
understanding is
most
that
of
the
them are
main
from
one is
Latin
from
America, the
France.
ones that I use.
Okay, so here's the problem with that is that's out of sample, right? In the sense that you're talking about worker cooperatives that are competing against capitalists, like traditional firms, right? And
Mhm.
so they are, they have because of the competition, right? They have this thing where they have to actually perform. But the problem was in Yugoslavia, they were only competing against like other firms with the same structure, and so they could afford to loosen their belts and like well actually they really couldn't afford to do it. I mean it did
But
shut down the economy.
as we've already indicated, back when Yugoslavia was market socialist, it was not experiencing that hyperinflation. So we know that worker cooperatives, objectively, do well against
uh,
capitalist firms, and we know that Yugoslavia was at its most economically strong when it was market socialist. It seems like the
I
empirical arguments from my side of the aisle are rising with every sentence you utter, but
I dispute the fact that it was not happening I mean like here I can even screen share if you want like this report, but like there was inflation going back at like as early as the 70s. I mean
well,
like
inflation happens in all countries at all times. If you're going to say that there were economic problems in Yugoslavia's
in
market
yeah,
socialism,
but
I would agree. There were
inflation
many
where
problems with
government
Yugoslavia.
but inflation where government spending doesn't go up, that is very uncommon.
Well, even if government spending doesn't go up, you still expect an average rate of inflation per year, don't you? Like usually between 1 and
Like
2%.
like okay, so let's see. The here they have a graph, so we can like solve this empirical question like just um by of course, this is like the um thing about reports from the 1980s is that they're like typewritten and very ugly and hard to navigate. But here we go. All right. So inflation rates okay, this goes back to 1980, right? Um And then let's see, this goes back to I think
Oh, you're screen sharing. Oh, okay.
I am screen sharing. Can you see that or?
Yeah, I can't share it on screen though. I can't share screen shares from randos because you might like throw a dick pic up there or something. But I'm looking at it.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, that was my plan. You done foiled me. No, but the okay, inflation rates increased from less than 30% in 1979 to approximately 170% in 1987. 40 to 45% per month in the third quarter of 1989. That's pretty bad.
Uh, wasn't there an wasn't there an oil crisis that affected the entire world during that time?
Like, was the entire world experiencing 40 to 45% inflation?
There,
I think we would remember that.
there's an oil shock in 1979 that affected the entire world. Is there any evidence at all that these problems can be traced back to cooperative ownership of firms?
Well, I mean, let's look. Like, it's not just these guys who say that it's traced back to cooperative ownership. It's also, I mean, I have a bibliography for you that I can send you.
Okay,
Like,
you send it to me because I can't like read through a 1980s economic report from the
yeah,
from
no,
the
I don't
IMF
blame. I do not blame you. Okay, so
over
let
a
me.
screenshot.
Okay, so let me put that here.
Okay, so are you a market socialist now that the math has proved that it's good and based and red pilled?
That's funny. No, like
What's your contention with market socialism?
like the look. I want a system that is going to promote the well-being of people, and it just doesn't really like. I can see why, like, it seems like the intuitive way to go, right? You think we should put money directly in the hands of people. We should spend it on their healthcare. We should spend it on, and like, on some level, like, I agree that there's some level of government intervention that's needed to give to make people happy, or but like the the concern is that like the ultimately the private sector has been responsible for the main improvements in human
What
well-being
is the
since
private
like
sector?
that's like I mean that's the private I mean it's what you define it as. Probably it's the private ownership of the means of production,
But
right?
who does these advancements?
um okay, this argument, right, here we go. Like
Okay, wait,
the
why? So whatever goods, whatever worth is produced by the private sector, how would democratizing these corporations mean they no longer produce worth? Would a scientist stop inventing just because they can now vote on who their manager is? Would a pharmaceutical expert stop doing double-blind trials on their drugs just because now they get to determine to an extent like who they're going to sell these drugs to and what quantities? Workers
the
produce goods, and workers will be the center of market socialism. So, if anything, there'd be more
work
innovation. They'd be rewarded properly for what they do.
okay, well, so I don't know about that because like the um it's very hard to start a firm when like you or rather the incentives are definitely reduced. Like um especially in terms of like trying to grow your business and like scale it so that you're serving more people and whatnot.
How are the incentives reduced?
Well, the more that you like grow it, the less likely, like the less likely that you're going to be. Um, like think about it, right? As a worker, right? Your incentive is to increase your wages. It's not to invest that back into the business. And so, like,
But investing it back into the business increases your wages in the long run. Like, you need to
yeah,
expand
but
in order to increase the supply of capital that you take a portion from.
yeah, obviously, right? But the problem is that like when you're one worker, you don't have like a view of the whole business the way that like an owner does, right?
Well, how big of a
If
business are
you
we talking?
I mean like
They are an
well,
owner, by the way.
okay, yes. I guess they are an owner in that sense, but like technically, but like are they receiving streams of information from all over the business, like from the accounting department and from like the like Jerry who works in marketing? I don't know,
Why don't we
like
start small? Why not they just be responsible for electing their own manager, and their manager is responsible for coordinating that information with other departments that elect their own managers?
I like okay. I just think that you get a problem there though because like if they elect a manager and the manager isn't like putting as like the maximum that he could be into their wages, like they'll just elect a new manager.
Is I don't think the manager would be necessarily determining wages. Wait, so you think people would only vote for managers who provide destructively high compensation for the people immediately beneath them?
Well, again, like we have historical experience. Like this isn't a
No, we
hypothetical. Like
don't. Because worker
the,
cooperatives actually survive price shocks and early startup periods more reliably than traditional businesses. If what you were describing was the case, then worker cooperatives would be the most volatile after they start. They are the least. Because, contrary to what you might believe about your common worker, they're not stupid enough to torpedo the business that is their livelihood just so they get a couple extra dollars per hour. They know that if you reinvest in your industry, that you can increase the supply of capital for yourself and for others. Same with hiring new people. I mean, yeah, it means you have to split the wage, you have to split the pie amongst more people, but in the long run, it is beneficial. Cooperatives have already been solving these problems for decades.
I'm not suggesting that workers are stupid. The issue is that like when you're, like suddenly your kid needs like a new like medical operation, right? Like you're in like your view of like the long-term well-being of the business. I get like I get what you're saying,
Well, I want
but
Medicare for all, so that would, so ideally, that wouldn't be in any way related to the functionality of that business.
all right, fair. The but you can see my point. Like the external shocks, right? I have no problem with workers being concerned about their wages. I just think that you need kind of a system of like um, checks and balances, and there is value in like
Isn't what I'm asking for checks and balances? Because the traditional capitalist firm is autocratic. You have an owner or a board of shareholders, and they appoint a CEO, and the CEO appoints a manager beneath him, and so on and so on. There's no room for checks and balances. What goes, goes. In a democratic system, there are. If you perform poorly, or if you are unkind to the people beneath you, you're replaced. We do this for our government. I don't know why it's so bad to do it for a business.
so so that is true in a corporation. Sole proprietorship's a little different, but we can take the I don't know if it's really going to be interesting to get into that. But like, so what you're interested in is creating a system. I just don't see how like moving to socialism is going to help you with the democracy in the workplace. Though, like, I mean, I am a teacher, right? I work in the public sector. I still answer to my boss, and I think she's a pretty good boss, but like, she still like tells me what to do, and if I, do something stupid, I'm gonna get fired. Like, um,
Well, that would
and
still happen. I mean, it's not like a person can't be fired if there's a worker cooperative. There are still
well, no, I know,
abusive
but
employees.
like,
Why not just be able to elect the person above you? Is that so much
so does
worse?
that extend to the public sector in your system?
Sure, fuck yeah. With obvious exceptions, probably not the military, for example.
Oh,
The military is a very different beast. If you sign up for the military, you sign up for a very specific set of limitations on your rights, unfortunately. Though, of
mhm.
course, these people should still have workers' rights, soldiers, but I don't think they should be democratic.
I mean, I guess here's the other thing that I don't understand is like, if this structure is so much better, like there's nothing in the law right now that says that firms can't elect their own leaders, but like there's just
Wait, can I address something in
the,
chat? Hold on one second. Guys, in
sure.
chat, the reason why the military shouldn't be democratic is because in a democracy, it's the responsibility of every voting or every participatory agent to maximize their own well-being. The goal of the military is not to maximize the well-being of soldiers. It's for them to do whatever they need to do to protect the state. It's a very different job. We don't like we don't the the needs and well-being of soldiers is secondary to their functionality in defending the state. It sounds cruel, but that is literally their job. I don't want there to be a conscription. If they sign up for that, that's the responsibility they sign up for. But their self-interest is not a priority. They should still have rights, though. That doesn't mean you should abuse them, but yeah. Okay, sorry.
I see, yeah. Well, yeah, the solution there is to fight less wars, I guess.
But, yes, I would prefer that. But the person who decides who we go to war with is the president, and we do elect that person.
Yes, that is true. The other thing about democracy, though, is like you do get okay, whether you can call what we've had recently, I don't know, but like
wait, chat's correcting me. I'm sorry, chat's correcting me. They're saying that Congress is technically the one that's supposed to improve war, but we all know it doesn't work that way. Okay, sorry.
Right, no, it's a policing operation or whatever they call it. But I guess like you still run into problems where like democracy is very fickle in the sense that like it'll focus on like one thing for a little bit of time and then it'll immediately jump to something else. Mm-hmm. And there's all these like procedures that you have to go through to get decisions made, which works, I think, on a national level because, there's always some wacky people in Congress who like want to get some crazy law passed, right? And, that kind of slow process, can be good on a national level, but I think that in a market where you have to respond quickly to like...
Do you think traditionally owned corporations respond quickly and efficiently to changing market demands?
It depends on corporations maybe not, but like, I don't know, like smaller LLCs maybe. Like
smaller LLCs,
it really depends on the size.
Smaller LLCs would just have the one elected manager, would they not? So there shouldn't be much deliberation at all. In fact, it would just be one person making the decisions and communing with the council when necessary. And if they do a poor job, they get elected out and so on and so forth. I mean, we've made these trade-offs with government before. We know that democracies can sometimes run slower than authoritarian governments, but I think they tend to produce much better outcomes. And frankly, I would much, much, much rather have, and by the way, this is a fake trade-off because worker cooperatives seem to be more efficient than traditionally owned firms. But if we had to make that trade-off, I would much rather have a slightly slower economy with much happier workers, if I had to make that trade-off.
Okay. There's a couple of like false premises, I think, though, in what you just said. Like, mm-hmm. Number one, where the data you're talking about is still mostly comes from these firms competing against traditional ones, right? And second,
but wouldn't that benefit my argument? If a worker cooperative is outperforming traditionally owned corporations, wouldn't that be an indication that worker co-ops aren't susceptible to the problems you're saying they are?
But the issue is that in Yugoslavia, when they weren't competing against traditional firms, they tanked the economy. So
the economy tanked after they set up private market reforms. The period of hyperinflation literally began the year after they restructured the economy.
What, the 1979?
No, that was an oil shock. But the hyperinflation, that took place the year after they got rid of the market economy reforms.
Okay, well,
Yugoslavia had a lot of economic problems that weren't just like how they structured their economy. Like they were still a Soviet satellite state with relatively scarce resources and a lot of infrastructural problems. We wouldn't expect very good outcomes from them. They did much better than was expected. That's the reason why Yugoslavia was like so exceptional. Sorry, not really a satellite state. He maintained economic and political independence, and he actually threatened to assassinate the fucking Soviet Union. I know. But nonetheless, Yugoslavia was largely in a block of countries that weren't exactly known for being incredibly economically prosperous. Also they had like an autocracy. Tito was a brutal dictator. They killed a lot of people. I mean,
but that's kind of... I'm sorry, I got distracted because my girlfriend was watching the stream, and I think she just tuned out because it got beyond what she was willing to Anyway,
That's
sorry.
okay.
Um,
That's the phenoids, am I
any-
right? That's why we stick with the bros.
nah. If I show her the rest, I'll probably edit that part out or something. I don't know. But the like anyway, I'm so sorry. I have ADHD. What were we talking about? We were talking about like
I think you were about to embrace the glory of market socialism.
hilarious. Yeah, I guess like
I do have to
I don't
depart
know.
soon for what it's worth. If you have any final
Sure.
points you'd like to bring up, I just want to say, like, a lot of people seem to have these very strong like feelings against market socialism, which is weird to me because it's literally just democracy. I don't know why so many people are attached to the idea that they should have no say in their workplace or their. There are so many fucked up
I'm,
things in America which stem directly from the fact that like managers don't give a fuck about their workers. One big one, this is a really easy example. Like this is very baseline stuff. The fact that we don't let retail workers sit down at like the cashiers at checkouts in grocery marts or like in like I don't know fucking Target or whatever, like we don't let people have chairs because I'm willing to bet you at some point in like 1976 some piece of shit fucking bespectacled economic author wrote an article on how when you allow your employees to sit, it disrupts customers and causes them to lose 0.002% profits. And since then, every corporation in the United States has been giving people foot and back pains like for their entire lives ever since. I don't know, like shit like this is so solvable if the people in charge were the people who suffered the consequences of the people in charge, you know?
I like. Well, okay. I'm not saying like. Yes, I mean the. I mean, I've experienced like, you know, as a teacher, like some really crappy stuff, like just by due to the traditions of like what what teachers are expected to do, like buy our own school supplies and whatnot. But like the but I think that it's generally frowned upon, even and like they're looking. I mean, Amazon is kind of like
Wait, what's frowned
you
upon?
know like I mean, okay. I was reading like a business school textbook recently, and don't ask me why I do these things in my spare time. I don't know, but like they were generally like it's frowned upon to treat your workers in a way that's going to like make them unmotivated and unhappy and want to quit. Like
Well,
it turns out it's
I wish
bad for
any
business.
managers read that though, because like m most of our service industry is full of people who are miserable and hate their job and want to quit. Like all you have to do is work these industries. Like people there are not being given the provisions they need to enjoy their job, like at all. It just isn't happening. It's like a game managers play to make the people underneath them as miserable as possible. You know, you have some obvious stuff like, hey, probably don't play with your phone while like there are customers around. That's okay. Like all right, you're at work, but then you have like you can't be on your phone when there's nobody in the store and you like can't sit down and like these things get systematized and like this is across the board. I think that I don't know. I think it's corporate culture. Managers do this to the people beneath them because they know the people before them did it as well. And if they stop doing that, one of these days, corporate is going to send somebody to their location and corporate is going to write them up for allowing their employees to sit. And the only reason they're writing them up for that is because they know that the person before them would have also written them up for that. And it's this massive cycle of unaccountability that makes people miserable. I just want to put a little bit of that power in the hands of the people who are actually developing lower back pain by standing for 8 hours a day at the checkout line.
That's fine. I'm not against that. But why does the government have to say that, like, that everyone has to do it? Like, you have to organize your workplace this way. Isn't it enough to just change the culture?
Changing the culture would be nice, and I do think that if every business was a worker cooperative, then people wouldn't go back to the way things were before. Who would want to work at an autocratic business when every other business is cooperative? Who would ever want to do that? It would be like I don't know, sexual submissives, people gluttons for punishment. I don't know who would do that. But the fact of the matter is that these changes just aren't going to happen without government intervention to impose some standard of workplace democracy. I think this is as worthwhile and as justified as government standards to impose an end to feudalism and the aristocracy. I think that it's okay to use government force if it means preserving democracy. Because the alternative to that is allowing autocracy in the name of freedom, which is contradictory. Allowing people to sell their lives away to an autocratic corporation because you're afraid to have the government fix that problem. It's very weird to me. That seems like a good use of government force.
All right. Well, there's this other thing too, which is that I also just I get the sense that like places that are bad to work at, like they don't retain their employees for very long.
Yeah.
Like,
but everyone's poor and desperate, so they come back anyway, you know? Yeah, the high turnover in a lot of these places.
Yeah, that's high turnover, but like the poor and desperate, yes. But over time, like you look, I don't want to say something that's like out of that's like let me put it this way. I think that workers often don't realize the say that they have in the employer-employee relationship.
You mean unionizing?
Yeah, that's part of it, honestly, but also like just the fact that, you know, they have like managers rely on their expertise, right?
Well, no, not for most jobs. No, if you're working like a professional job, or you're an artisan of some kind, or you're like famous or well known, or you have a PhD and are in a field that relies on your expertise, maybe.
I mean, or you're a teacher, or like, or you're a teacher or an accountant, or like any of these other really common jobs.
Hundreds of millions of people work retail or restaurants. They work service jobs. They don't have that kind of leverage. And also, I remember my high school days. Teachers are not anywhere near as immune to being fired as people meme about, okay? Teachers had no power when it came to complaining about their wages being cut, their class sizes being cut, or sorry, their class lists being cut. Like, teachers got fucked over all the time by a shrinking department budget, and then they would go ahead and spend $100 million in some new sports field. I know teachers don't have as much power as they pretend to. Maybe it's hard to fire you guys, but that doesn't mean you get anything even close to a say in how your department operates.
Well, actually, I work at a charter school, so it's not that hard to fire me. But
well, there you go.
Yeah, but we did actually have a thing where they were trying to lay off a bunch of enrichment teachers at the start of the year, and the union. It was actually kind of an interesting moment. They like. Everyone turned off their cameras and changed their name to Enrichment is Essential. This was over Zoom, by the way. Mm-hmm. And they managed to get the layoffs reversed. But like, I mean, honestly, it's. I think the issue is like.
Well, that's good. Like, that's defensible. That's good. But like, but you can run down this road forever. Tiny. Comparatively socially insignificant instances of rebellion don't substitute substantive reform. It was the case. You have peasants back in feudalism and slaves under slavery, and they do like little good things. But you want to get rid of the system altogether, don't you?
But people having power and not using it doesn't, to me, suggest
what power can like a restaurant worker use?
Like social capital, like the fact that they can like apply to other jobs while they're working there. Like,
how is that social? How is that power though? How is I'm leaving for another minimum wage job like a flex? What social capital? Like canceling them? Like taking a live stream of like the grease underneath the fryers at the restaurant you work at? Or like taking a video and saying you'll upload it or to your, like send it to news or something. Like, what's the? There's no power here. Like, come on. if there was if there was actual power here, people would be using it. I think you have a very low opinion of the average worker. If there was real power here, then this would be utilized in some capacity.
All right. Well,
I love you.
I get I get the sense that we're talking past each other a little bit here.
Well, maybe a little.
Yeah.
I do have to get to more content shit. So
yeah, sure.
I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah. My final meme is that it was a real honor to talk to Ian from Smosh.
Thanks, buddy. Hey, good luck with your fucking students, okay? Good luck.
Thanks. Good luck with your stream. Take care. Goodbye.
Bye.